Yeah, I think the Clippers probably. It seems like they're a team that makes a lot of sense for him. They need another ball handler. Harden, up until the last couple of years, had been remarkably durable. He's a guy who hadn't missed much time, so hopefully, he could come in and bring at least some level of stability to a team that their star guys miss a lot of time. So you would hope for that, and they're what was interesting when they waived Eric Gordon, it was, all right, maybe we finally found the limit to how much Steve Ballmer is willing to pay. But if he's willing to take on Harden now, when maybe he's just saying, hey, we're going to kind of clear out a little bit of room, and then we'll take Harden on. They're obviously going to have to trade matching salary to get him, but we'll bring him in, and we'll just kind of keep doing what we've been doing, which is pile up contracts for players, and we'll let it all play out on the court.
Top 3 things you didn't know about the CBA. So in this episode of the Big 3, we're going to cover the 3 things that you didn't know about the CBA. First and foremost, this is a freebie, is that the CBA is the collective bargaining agreement. It just dropped a couple of days ago. It goes into effect July 1st, and things are already changing really fast. So you see Jordan Poole, he gets traded. That trade saved the Warriors $250 million in luxury tax. Eric Gordon gets waived by the Clippers. That saves the Clippers $110 million just this year in salary and taxes. And that's entirely the result of this new CBA and the very punitive approach to the salary cap. So let's start there, right? The CBA at this juncture is a contract between the NBA, the league that's representing the 30 owners collectively, and then the NBA Players Association that represents current, past, and future players. So they're representing the best interest of guys who are 12 years old just in the middle school league right now. It covers pretty much everything that you could possibly have to know. Did you know, by the way, the players get per diem when they're on the road? They get food budgets of $156 a day. It covers contracts, pensions, everything in between, housing allowance. So the first thing really to know about the CBA is how it changed the salary cap. So we all know that the NBA has a soft cap, meaning the teams can spend over that technical limit, but there's a penalty if they do that. The CBA, the new CBA, makes that cap much harder than before. Pause. The new CBA now creates what Nick has mentioned it multiple times tonight already, luxury tax aprons, which is a very weird saying of like ceilings. It's like a soft ceiling and then like a hard ceiling. So let's start. The salary cap for this NBA season is $136 million. The league's like okay if you kind of like squeak over that number. Really not very punitive. You just pay and give up the big check that non-tax paying teams receive at the end of each year. But once you hit $165 million, now you're deep into the luxury tax. And that's where things get wild. The first apron hits at $7 million over the $165 million luxury tax line. And so $172 million is where you really get taken down. That's where the tax structure gets super punitive. And teams over the first apron now have prohibitions in this new CBA on trade and limited player exceptions. So makes it very difficult to sign and or trade for players, right? One of the most penal things, pause, that happens with this new CBA is you don't get to just trade one player for many anymore. You have to trade one player for another player of the same, salary structure. And once you get to the second apron, that's the Golden State level. Basically, the NBPA that the players that were in the NBPA, most of them had been taken down by the Golden State Warriors. Grant Williams is on there. CJ McCollum is on there. So now you kind of get a sense of why Golden State is being so targeted. That hits at $182.5 million. And now with the new CBA, there are severe financial penalties and also provisions against trading certain types of first-round picks. They can't use their own taxpayer mid-level exception, which Keith was telling us about in last segment. You can't sign buyout players at all. You can't take back money in a trade, which means a team like Golden State, which paid $400 million in salary and taxes in 2022, might actually be looking closer to a $550 million in 2024, just with a similar payroll, right? The same exact amount, but $150 million more just in luxury tax alone. So the cap and the aprons are going to be much more punitive due to what the NBA is now calling the repeater tax, teams that go over the cap for multiple years in a row. And then you start losing draft picks altogether. So what it all boils down to is this. The new CBA makes it less punitive to go over the tax barely and super prohibitive to go way over it. Next, in-season tournament. You mentioned that, Nick. Modeled after the FA Cup, the National Soccer League tournaments. NBA in-season tournament will take place in season, featuring all 30 teams. Regular season games will all count as cup games will all count as regular season games. First 2 rounds of the tournament will take place on specific days during October and November. It starts with a group stage, hence the whole cup type of an environment. And then 8 teams advance to a knockout round. Final 4 teams play in a neutral site in December. All players in the Final 4 are now going to get paid. Rumored to be around $500,000 per player. Teams have special cup uniforms. Of course, that increases merch sales. I think that's kind of an intriguing idea. Adam Silver loves soccer. Kind of makes sense to me. And then the last most important thing to know about the CBA that you probably didn't know is that there's this confusing area called contract exceptions, which are major changes to the CBA. It affects both teams under non-taxpayer and overpayer taxpayer on the luxury line. This is really important for what are called mid-level exceptions, designed for teams to keep players while being financially responsible, and they count differently towards the cap. So the new CBA, the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, is now $12.4 million a year. It can stretch over 3 years, not 2. And the taxpayer MLE is now $5 million, down from 6.5. So a lot of these like nerd things mean that non-tax-paying teams can now take back 200% in salary in a trade, which gives them even more flexibility to make trades. All of that to say, it's supposedly trying to smooth and make it easier for teams to be competitive. What do all these things have in common? They reward teams like Denver for building within the draft and penalize teams for spending way over the second apron like the Clippers.
I'm actually a big fan of this, or at least intrigued by this midseason tournament. And like, I feel like if anything, if you're betting on it, you know that you hope at least. We don't know right at the beginning. It's going to take some time to see it, maybe even a couple of years for it to play out. But like betting on those games, you would hope, especially as it gets closer. You're talking about games in January that are a part of this, and hopefully players are motivated by the money that you can win if you're at least in that Final Four. So you have something that makes a little more sense as opposed to, oh my God, it's a December game in the NBA and nothing makes sense.
Yeah, it makes complete sense for betting, right? Because it's more futures that we could play. We'll get tournament winner. Mm-hmm. We'll look at prices. You know, you could do an MVP of the tournament. So that's, you know, more things that you could bet. I think it's huge for us and for content. You know, it's just, I'm interested to see if the players get into it. Obviously, you know, it counts towards the regular season, so it's not added games. That was one worry that I had. I didn't want to see these guys playing 120 games or anything crazy like that. Mm-hmm. So then the playoff products watered down because everybody's getting hurt. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I got to see it because I don't love it. I don't love the midseason tournament, but maybe it'll grow on me. I didn't know that I was going to love the play-in tournament, and I do.
I hate it in the sense that I don't think it elevates the Grizzlies, right? Like it's fine in a vacuum. It's not like Marcus Smart's not going to make the Grizzlies worse, but I was sort of hopeful that they would actually address the 3 spot, right? Like I was hopeful they would get a OG Anunoby. I was hopeful they would get, you know, really a normal person who you didn't have to worry about shooting 25% from 3, who could also guard wings. So now, you know, you're going to have a 3-guard lineup. I mean, it can work, but how many of those are there right now in the NBA? Marcus Smart can guard big. He has. But offensively, what's that going to look like? I don't think there are any real guarantees.
Javon Carter, I do expect to stay put just because the Bucks can't afford to lose him, but he's just so plug and play. Like when you look at his defense and just a point guard who's not really a point guard, he'll play off the ball. I think I'm probably most intrigued by Ayo Dosunmu. A lot of people seem down on him because he didn't shoot the three ball too well this year. We're talking about someone who can pass, keep the ball moving, is 6'5", and the Bulls had him guarding through his first 2 years in the NBA, positions 1 through 4. And now there's talk that they might just let him walk if he gets more than like $5 million a year or something. So if you can get him for that number, even if it's more than that number, I would absolutely take a flyer. And, Yuta Watanabe almost seems like he's become a mainstream free agent because of how many teams without any money are just looking at him. And he makes a ton of sense as a guy that's 6'9", can shoot the ball really well from three, even if he won't take a ton of them. And I think he's become a good or at least reliable help defender from both the inside and out. And so if you're a team, everyone wants wings in general, but if you're a team that just doesn't have any money to spend and he's still going to fall in that sort of minimum contract range, I don't know how he's on your list. And at this point, it really wouldn't shock me if some of these teams with, the bigger MLEs or cap space are just like, well, hey, here's a 2-year deal that's going to pay you noticeably more because we think that you're that plug and play into our rotation.
Alyssa Thomas, 100%. I don't know about A'ja Wilson, which is really crazy to say because she's been playing really well, but it's the fact that Jackie Young has been so good. And it is like, if you're going to take an MVP from that team, you got to take Jackie Young at this point in time right now. Like, she's a walk-in 20-piece any point in time. So the fact that Jackie Young is 16-1, I would definitely take a look at Jackie Young at 16-1. That's 100% a look that I think a little bit better than A'ja Wilson. And it's nothing against A'ja. We know that she's an MVP candidate, but it's the fact that she doesn't have to do that much. And Jackie has said that, look, I don't care. I'm going to go out there and get mine. I think she's actually averaging 20 points on the season already. So Jackie Young at 16-1, I think that's a bet that I would place now. If you don't already have an Alyssa Thomas bet, I would get that in now because with Brianna Jones out of the lineup, she easily walks into the rebounds every single night. And also her working out of the post, it really sets her up to be able to hit three-point shooters, be able to find cutters and find other people and get those extra few assists that she needs. She's right now averaging about 8 assists on the season. So if she averages a triple-double, I don't know how you don't make it her. Like, nobody in the WNBA has averaged a triple-double for a season before. And it could be something similar to the Russell Westbrook, James Harden thing where it doesn't matter how good Breanna Stewart is. If you average a triple-double, you're automatically getting the award.